The cut day story is which? What? The cut day story.
I think that the cut down day story was really that there wasn't, now granted, we still got some ripple effects. There's this long window here this week before rosters truly get set, but there wasn't really that, shocking move. The biggest trade that got done was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson being traded from the Saints to the Eagles. He'll play safety there for him and be a starter and hopes that he can cash in. That obviously lends a different dynamic to the Eagles defense because when, you always know when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is on the field, and opponents definitely know when he's on the field. So that was a significant move, but, Jimmy Garoppolo not going to a new team, that was something that had kind of been in the works for a week or so. The fact that got done, that was part of it, but you didn't have that, out of left field type of massive earth-shaking trade, though again, it's early here, and by moving cutdowns up from Saturday to Tuesday, you kind of create this little bit of a vacuum where some teams are holding on to players in, hopes or thinking that maybe there's still a trade to be had here in the coming days.
So why did the Saints trade away a player who the Eagles can maybe win a Super Bowl with? Why can't the Saints hold on to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? What happened there?
He's in a contract year, and they had offered him what they thought was a strong deal for the nickel market. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is watching Derwin James and Minkah Fitzpatrick and all these safeties getting paid about double what the top of the nickel market is. He's thinking he should be paid at that level, even though he spent about 2/3 of his snaps in New Orleans playing the slot. So he and his agent, Kevin Connor, basically said, we're not going to engage on this. The Saints then turn their attention to a trade, and they end up finding a team in the Eagles that actually will play him at safety. And if Gardner-Johnson plays the way that he has in the past at a new position here, he could be a very rich man in the not too distant future.
So what's also with all of the backup quarterbacks who got cut yesterday, what was that all about? I mean, you spend all spring and OTAs and training camp bringing these guys along, and then all of a sudden, see you later, and they start swapping them out right before the beginning of the season. What happened there?
It's a combination of factors. Detroit is kind of on their own where they knew, and they were actually public about it, that they didn't think that they had a number 2 quarterback on their team. They didn't think that David Blau or Tim Boyle stepped up. And then, Nate Sudfeld ends up getting let go, which was a product of Jimmy Garoppolo staying and the fact that Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, had been very relevant in camp. I got a chance to see him live. I mean, he looks like an NFL quarterback, a guy who's got a shot, so they keep him. Sudfeld then ends up coming available, and Detroit signs him and cuts Blau late last night. But a lot of the other ones is a product of, a couple of things. One, the way that the injured reserve rules are set, that you need to hold the player until 4 o'clock today before putting them on IR to be eligible to return during the season. So there's teams that are kind of floating veterans who they know are unlikely to sign someplace else. You can't actually enter into an agreement, but you can have, certainly there's plenty of teams that wink nods with players that, hey, we're going to bring you back once this IR stuff settles. And then the other factor is the COVID rules regarding veterans on the practice squad, and the fact that you have expanded practice squads were so popular among clubs that they actually voted to adopt a good number of those. So you now can have veterans on practice squads, and so a lot of these vested players, when you're talking about, off the top of my head, guys like Cooper Rush and Josh Johnson, there's other ones, Logan Woodside, you probably can, in some cases they haven't got to go through waivers, but you can bring guys back on the practice squad, then have elevations to bring them up for at least the first few weeks. Again, it takes a while for rosters to settle, and teams like flexibility. That's what these new rules give them. It just so happens that a lot of these backup quarterbacks end up being in this little bit of a limbo where you're going to be back, we want you back, but it might be the 53 or it might be the practice squad for a minute, and it might not be till Friday because you got these IR things. It's a product of the rules. A lot of these guys are going to be back with the same team.
Tom Pelissero here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's linger on the Cowboys a little bit here, Tom. Dak Prescott's the only quarterback on their 53-man. What's up with that? And clearly they're going to go with the rookie to replace Tyron Smith, correct? That's what they're going to do here?
It sure looks like they're going in-house, and Tyler Smith would be the logical man up. It's a lot to ask of a player who was in a competition at guard and probably was not going to win the competition at guard now to go and start at left tackle. But the people I've spoken to in Dallas are all expressing confidence that they've got enough guys, they've got the right people in place. They've thought about this. I mean, Tyler Smith has missed a ton of games. You look back over – going back to the 2020 season, he's missed about twice as many games as he's played if you include the time he's going to miss this season. So they were planning for that. That's why they drafted Tyler Smith. This is one of those future is now moments under unfortunate circumstances. But, yeah, I anticipate Tyler Smith quite possibly is going to be the starting left tackle. They may not, say anything on that, though, until they actually line up in week one. And in terms of backing up Dak Prescott, that's another situation where I would anticipate that both Cooper Rush, who's vested, so he can immediately re-sign it, in a little bit here once the personnel notice comes out, he can re-sign to the practice squad. And then if Will Greer clears waivers, they'll in all likelihood bring him back too and have three guys on the roster, even if they're not on the 53.
Right, but somebody's going to have to back him up when Toe meets ball on Sunday Night Football, right? I mean, that's going to have to happen.
Right, but you've got the elevations. You still can do several, it started out as the COVID elevations. Now you can have standard elevations where you bring them up. They're technically still on your practice squad, but you can do it, I believe, 3 times now without having to pass back through waivers. So they could bring up a Will Greer, bring up Cooper Rush for the first 3 weeks. And then again, maybe somebody gets hurt. Now you got a 53 spot, and you actually bring them up to the 53 come week 4. That's just kind of how the rules are set up.